This video is going to attempt to, within 15 minutes, explain the complexities of the rhetorical triangle and the relationship between the different parts of the rhetorical triangle. On the surface, the rhetorical triangle looks pretty simple, right? I mean, this is a pretty basic looking diagram. You've got ethos, logos, and pathos, and they're attached to the writer or the speaker, and then the audience and the context. So ethos is Greek for ethical. You could also think of it as expert. Logos is Greek for logic, and pathos is Greek for emotion. You could also think of emotion as passion. The reason why I'm giving you passion is so that you have a P word to go with pathos, just as you have an E word to go with ethos and an L word to go with logos. So memorizing this chart is obviously not a problem. Almost anyone could do it. It's the relationship between these things and how these things work together to get a message across that is complex and that we have to apply again and again and again to any message that is coming our way. I think that rhetorical situation should lay right in the middle of the triangle, and obviously this isn't a perfect diagram for that. But when we talk about rhetorical situation, we're talking about the situation that persuasion is taking place within. So if you think of like a common speech would be a commencement address, right? What's the rhetorical situation of that commencement address? Well, any commencement address is being given to a graduation celebration. So that would be the rhetorical situation. Now, within a specific commencement, there might be a more specific rhetorical situation. So, for example, you could be giving a commencement address to Mount Holyoke College, which is an all-female college, and then the rhetorical situation changes a little bit because there are only women in the audience. The rhetorical situation of a eulogy is the funeral atmosphere. Well, on the AP test, we've seen a eulogy given to former President Ronald Reagan by Margaret Thatcher. That changes the rhetorical situation a little bit because he's obviously a very famous and very powerful figure. So rhetorical situation, we need to get as specific as we possibly can when we're talking about it. And again, I think that it lays in the middle of the triangle, and logos, ethos, pathos, logic, expert, emotion, audience, speaker, message all get acted upon by the rhetorical situation. If you haven't already watched the Adidas Environmentally Conscious commercial, I suggest that you stop my video and watch this video, which is linked here in the slideshow, and I'm going to address it specifically on subsequent slides. So hopefully you watched the Adidas video. And again, we're going to apply the rhetorical triangle to that video. So logos, logic, message. What's the message of the video? Well, there are many messages in the video, but I'm going to choose two. One is that we should be environmentally conscious, right? That we should take care of our planet and take care of the world. But also, of course, the message is buy Adidas tennis shoes, specifically Stan Smith's, right? Any commercial is trying to sell you something, and while I would like to think that Adidas is thoughtful enough to want to save the earth no matter what, I kind of have a feeling that selling shoes the sales of shoes is increased by their environmentally conscious message. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be giving that. Ethos, the expert here, is a little bit weak in that it's Kermit the Frog or it's Stan Smith, who is the old retired tennis player sitting on the bench with Kermit, or it's Yara Shahidi, I hope I'm saying that right, from Blackish and Youngish. She's in the video, or Yoda, who's also in the video. And I would just say that perhaps while these people aren't necessarily experts on the environment, and they're not experts on Adidas tennis shoes, Stan Smith might be, I suppose, but like Kermit is somebody from our childhoods, so it pulls Kermit, like pulls on our heartstrings a little bit And so perhaps he's an expert in that way. But I would say that the ethos in this commercial, at least in my opinion, is fairly weak. The pathos, the emotion, the audience, how is it working on you? Well, there's a lot of things going on here. First of all, rhetoric doesn't have to be verbal. And I think that the music is nostalgic and sentimental, and that plays on our emotions. I think that the images that they show, a lot of peaceful images, and so you're linking being environmentally conscious and wearing Adidas tennis shoes with also having a sort of inner peace. There's even a scene where somebody seems to be doing some type of yoga in the park and reaching up toward the sun. I mean, there's this suggestion of, I don't know, something holy about saving the planet, which I suppose is true, but also about wearing Adidas tennis shoes, which I don't suppose is true. And then we have to take all of that and we have to ask ourselves, well, what's the rhetorical situation? And the rhetorical situation here is that it is a commercial attempting to sell us something. Now, that's the general rhetorical situation. What's the more specific rhetorical situation? It is a commercial using a popular, increasingly popular political message, climate change, to sell us tennis shoes, right? So the next question then becomes, well, where do rhetorical strategies come in? And I would say that rhetorical strategies are outside the rhetorical triangle, and they are working on everything in the rhetorical triangle. So your speaker, your audience, your message, and your rhetorical situation are all being worked on by the rhetorical strategies. Really, it's almost like, I mean, if we were to put this into an equation, I suppose it's kind of like the outside of the triangle, or the 3 points of the triangle, are added up. So it's audience plus speaker plus message. And then those would be in parentheses, and they would be multiplied by rhetorical situations, so that the rhetorical situation is acting on everything in the parentheses. But then that would also be, I think you would use brackets at that point. I don't think you use parentheses again. But then you'd have brackets around all of that, and then outside of those brackets would be rhetorical strategies, which are working on all of those. And then there would be an equal sign, and that's where you have your variable, right? That's where you would have X. What is X when all of those other things are working on each other? And how is the message being put forth in an attempt to convince us that we should listen to them about the environment in this case, and about purchasing some Stan Smiths? So what was a very simple triangle becomes a much more complex triangle when we begin, I think, looking at the different relationships between the parts of it. And that's why running it through one commercial is just not enough. We have to run it through just about every argument that we look at in AP English language, because on your exam, you are going to get a passage, and we do not know what that passage is. It could literally be from anything in Western history, and we're going to have to run that passage on the fly when we're being timed in May through the rhetorical triangle, and then write an explanation of how that passage is working on us as an audience. Thanks for listening to this presentation.